Go on.
We're live. Oh my God, it's all happening. Hey, folks, 12 noon. It's political noon with yours truly, Blake and Rachel here. Rachel here, Blake over there. So we got a bunch of links. We got a bunch of stories. This is well done from Blake. Wow, there's all sorts of news going on today. I'll dump a whole bunch of my stuff in here as well. So these shows last for about, anywhere from a half hour to an hour. And what I think we'll do is we'll just take it right off the top with Blake. We'll get Blake rolling right away. So can you put the first link in? Blake's got, do you want to do the mandate letter, or which one do you want to
do the CPAC one first.
CPAC. Okay.
And then we'll do mandate letter second.
Okay, so
because it's a play on both. They work into each other.
All right. So the second link that's from the top there, it says CPAC, yada, yada. All right, Blake, here's your link. Tell us what we're looking at. And, well, we know this guy. It's Art Carney once again.
Art Carney. Well, just to continue on the discussion of predictions.
Yeah.
Essentially, it looks like the groundwork has been placed to bring in Canada into an economic union, security union with the United States. And this is interesting. As I've been watching over the last week, the language that Art Carney,
we call him Mark. It's Mark.
Mark Carney. This is a Goldman Sachs trillion-dollar asset manager. Yeah. Former Bank of Canada, former head of Bank of England, carries 3 passports, Canada, Ireland. And so this guy's a globalist. He's all over the place, but he represents the asset manager class. So this was interesting, listening to him dance around the question about integrating more deeply into the United States. And right. You can tell he's not a good liar, but he is doing his best to not make a direct comment about it. But you can tell the agenda is built within what he's saying, and just listen carefully, which then will go to his mandate letter he sent out yesterday to all government ministries on the agenda of the Liberal government moving forward. So let's do that. Let's do the video. Listen to what he had to say.
So do you want to see that first video or the mandate letter?
No, let's listen to the video first, because then it's good to kind of go through his points afterwards. And then dissect it a little bit.
Okay, we'll bring it back because Sue's so quick. She's already got the other one up. So we'll bring the other one up, and we'll listen to Art. Hopefully this doesn't skitter scatter too much.
Yeah, you got to hear the question at the beginning because from the reporter, because then you watch him dance.
All right. So Art Carney.
A couple weeks after the election, there's conversations at least about further integrating the Canadian military with the U.S. about the Golden Dome. What do you say to Canadians who voted for you based on your during the election, you were very Republican, saying that the old relationship that Canada has with the U.S. is over. You said that Donald Trump is trying to break us so he can own us. But now, just a couple weeks after the election, there's conversations, at least, about further integrating the Canadian military with the U.S. about the Golden Dome. What do you say to Canadians who voted for you based on your elbows and mentality with the Americans?
Well, first, one of the reasons why we're having more constructive discussions with the Americans is because we are demonstrating our ability that we have choices. We have choices economically. We have choices with respect to our defense. I'll give you several examples to back that up. Maybe I'll step away from the economics. Mr. Gray, you've probably heard enough of me on that, so I will talk about.
And just let us know when you're done, Blake, with this.
With respect to the F-35, it was raised
listen to what he's saying. Like he actually bypassed the economics.
For the F-35 for the back end of that. European alternatives that we could pursue, we have to weigh them in the best interests of Canada. That's how we will evaluate it. With respect to broader defense, whether it's air, sea, land, cyber, we have other partnerships that we can strike. And one of the things, as you will have heard, but I'll repeat, that we have been discussing with our European partners is becoming a full partner of Rearm Europe, Safe Europe, different acronyms for a major relationship that we can have that gives us diversification, new partners, new options, better value for money, potentially, more domestic Canadian economic benefits. So all of that exists in parallel
Listen to the word salad.
potential opportunities with the U.S. And the way I would characterize the change in the relationship, and I stood in this room and made those comments the first time, and I'm very clear, and I absolutely repeat them today, which is we had for almost half a century, we as Canada, a relationship with the Americans which were a steady process of deepening integration.
Oh, there it is. Listen to that.
We went from free trade deal through to CUSMA, deepening integration in military aspects. And that process of deepening integration is over. We are in a position now where we cooperate when necessary, but not necessarily cooperate. So we have other options for that cooperation. We are pursuing those other options. You will see a very different set of partnerships, security and economic, going forward. But to be absolutely clear,
they quickly said that, Pastor.
when it
Let's
is in
hold that
Canada's
right there.
interest, first best interest, to cooperate with the Americans, to strike deals with the Americans, relationships, and particularly in examples like ballistic missile defense, that may be the best option. And if so, we will pursue that.
Okay. So there we have him. He is dancing around the actual direct question, but he makes some points in there, and then he quickly changes course because he's being very cautious on what he's letting, I'm saying, the cat out of the bag. When he talked about deepening those economic ties, those security ties with the United States, he's not saying, oh, we're going to pull back. You'll notice he doesn't say that. He says that we're changing course, we're doing different things. What is that course? So what's really important to listen to how he danced around the question about the deepening ties with the economic side, because the economic side is the key, because the security is the first step. That's a no-brainer. Anybody should be like on board of that. Let's work together, secure North America. But the economic one, his liberal elbows up team, he's got to somehow convince that the left of Canada that he's the guy to protect Canada's sovereignty. And that's why I do believe he's taking us towards an EU-like relationship. We still maintain existence as a country. However, we are now in a new EU-like relationship with the United States, common currency, common market, which essentially is we're becoming part of the US without calling us the 51st state. And I do believe if you read his next statement, this was his statement that was sent out as the prime minister to all ministers and all the ministries on his mandate and where he's going. So let's pull that up. So just listen to what he said, and let's just go through some of his key points right off the bat.
All right. So we'll get to that one sec. I just want to address my take on what I saw there. It's different take than yours. I think the reporter put him on the spot. You're going with Trump. And he said, historically, yeah, we were going with America. Now we got options on the table. But I don't think they're realistic options. He's talking about, he mentions things like, well, we got the F-35 contract with the U.S. Maybe we'll go with their plane. Maybe we won't. We got options. The other thing we can do is we're going to tighten our security with Europe, looking towards Europe. But Europe's so far removed that, to me, he's not, to me, it wasn't word salad. To me, he was trying to make the claim that the new order is going to be Canada facing towards Europe, no longer facing towards America, but trying to be polite and not offending the lion that lies to the south of us in the person of Donald John Trump. So, in my opinion, that's a ruse. That he's still keeping people distracted with Europe, but what's really going on is what he's doing with Trump. I really feel that everything he said there was a ruse to keep people
going, oh, okay, we're going to be there. We're going to, it's same old, we're not going to be partnering with the states, etc. very much.
Yeah, it's elbows up.
Elbows,
We're still
elbows up,
elbows
everybody.
up. That's what we're saying.
That's
but if you listen to what he never actually states who those options are. That's what I'm saying. He's being slippery because he can't let the cat out of the bag. Because here's my theory on it.
Okay.
There's no way Poilievre would have been able to bring Canada into even an economic union or a EU-like union for North America. The left in Canada would go ballistic. But they chose their leader, the left, because the united aspect of the Liberals and NDP got together behind Carney thinking he would save Canada. He is the asset manager. He is the globalist banker. He's the guy that they thought would be elbows up, bring money to Canada, save Canada. But the point is, there's so much going on behind the scenes with the looting of the Bank of Canada right now. We're basically a country in receivership. He's the asset manager coming to manage that receivership of Canada. So I did a tweet. Brian Lilly, who is a reporter in
I give Lilly
Canada, and I made a point to his point, and he kind of made a point. Donald Trump talks about Canada joining the Golden Dome missile defense system. What are your thoughts? My response was, we are advancing towards a unified economic security and currency union. Trump endorsed Carney. Don't forget that. $1 trillion pension fund managers, including the Canada Pension Plan, which is worth approximately $750 billion, are shifting assets to the USA. Yeah. The North America Union is forming. Why did Ford, that's the premier of Ontario, oppose Poilievre? This is why. It's very simple. Ontario Industries is reliant heavily, probably more than any other province, on trade with the United States, especially the auto manufacturing sector, steel, Hamilton Steel, all that stuff, all done there. And Ford guaranteed knows this. He knows Carney. He knows what's going on. He's part of the industry, the elites of Canada. And of course, the Laurentian elite is Ontario and Quebec. They need that. So read between the lines I wrote in there. Carney will guide Canada into this union, but he will broach it over time that this is a win because he's going to protect Canadian assets. Pension plan, that's the big one, right? Jobs, the other big one. So it's going to be a win. It will be very European-like. We'll still maintain Canada as a country within this new economic union, but in all reality, the Bank of Canada will have to be surrendered to the U.S. Federal Reserve because they're going to have to take on the debt in a unified currency, which means we're going to merge it together. All the liabilities will be taken on. So that's kind of my point there. I think that's what's happening.
Yeah.
So if we could pull up.
No disagreement with you on that. No disagreement with you on that.
So if we could pull up his mandate letter he wrote yesterday, which is critical.
And keep in mind the language here. He has no fucking mandate. He's been all over social media claiming he got a mandate. He got a slim. He may end up with a majority because they've all the recount going on. But, ostensibly, he has a minority government. As we sit here right now, it's a minority government. Okay, so that's no mandate. Trump has got a mandate. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right, let's make this big enough we can read it. All right.
Yeah. So let's read it. I'll actually, I'll just pull it up on my computer so I can read it to people.
Okay, sure. And Sue, you can scroll along as Blake reads it.
So essentially, listen to what he's saying here. And please, folks, when you're listening to this, read between the lines, right? What we're talking about. Again, this is a theory. I'm not saying this is a fact, but it is a theory that seems to be grounded with the background of who he is and who he's working with. Kevin O'Leary, I think, let the cat out of the bag when he's talking about this economic union as well. And of course, that guy's a billionaire as well, and quite heavily integrated into the Canadian business. So he goes, Canada faces a series of crises. In more dangerous and divided world, geopolitical risks are rising. Let's remember, he said China in the election is the number one threat to Canada, threatening our sovereignty. The global trading system, listen to what he's talking about here. The global trading system, which has helped power Canada's prosperity for decades, is undergoing the biggest transformation since the fall of the Berlin Wall. So he's not talking about Trump. He's just talking about globally. At home, our long-standing weak productivity is straining government finances. So he's admitting the Liberals for the last decade have done a terrible job managing the government finances, which is, to me, he's saying we're bankrupt, making life less affordable for Canadians and threatening to undermine the sustainability of vital social programs on which Canadians rely. The new federal government has an immense responsibility to address these challenges head on with focus, determination, fundamentally different approaches to governing. It is an interesting, fundamentally different approaches. We must redefine Canada's international, commercial, and security relationships. Isn't that interesting? In the process, we need to develop a defense industrial policy that secures Canada, fulfills our responsibilities to our allies, and helps build our economy. Canada must build an enormous amount of new infrastructure and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, he just goes on about housing and securing our borders and our communities and an energy superpower, which kind of goes against the whole concept of the carbon tax, because being an energy superpower, we need to be able to have carbon emission type of energy.
Drill.
Yeah,
drill,
so
baby, drill.
drill, baby, drill, and build, baby, build. Yeah. So, so anyway, let's get to our priorities. Priority number one stands out the most for me: establishing a new economic and security relationship with the United States and strengthening our collaboration with reliable trading partners and allies around the world. He is not saying, oh, we need to find new trading partners and not the US with the elbows up crowd we're all yapping about. He's saying a new economic and security relationship with the United States. Number one. And strengthening our collaboration with reliable trading partners and allies around the world. That's what Trump wants. Reliable trading partners around the world. And then he starts talking about building one of Canadian economy by removing barriers to interprovincial trade. Let's face it, Canada, you've been operating with tariffs interprovincially for decades. So this isn't anything new. We've been bad to each other internally with our own internal tariffs. Identifying and expediting nation-building projects that will connect and transform our country. Bringing down costs for Canadians and helping them to get ahead. Well, what would bring down Canadian costs overnight? An economic union with the United States, a single currency that becomes far more valuable, which gives us much stronger buying power globally, and that would bring the cost down overnight for Canadians. Making housing more affordable by unleashing the power of the public-private cooperation. That's a concern to me. That's that BlackRock crap where we can get into another video that I posted about how BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, those guys are working to take over real estate. So that's the one we need to watch out for. But BlackRock has got Trump's ear, and Carney is one of their guys. He's a Goldman Sachs guy. So let's watch out for that one, because we can ally to what they're trying to do in Canada is to starve out mom pop owners of extra real estate, such as being a landlord, just even stay in your home, that they want to tax the future earnings on it before you've even sold those assets.
Yeah, and so full disclosure, Blake is not a disinterested third party in all this. Blake is actually in the industry dealing with rental homes and properties and all this sort of thing. He does it for a living. So this is something Blake has a lot of personal experience and knowledge with.
So I think we've got, I don't need to go through all this, but he talks about working together, but I really focus in on his priority. Priority number one is establishing a new economic and security. What is a new economic and security relationship? I'm watching the weather, right? And you can see the weather patterns changing. And that's how I kind of look at this. It's the signs are there. This is what they're doing. The weather is happening in front of you. You can see when rain is coming. You can see when it's sunny. You can see, when things are changing. So the tide is definitely changing here. I do believe Carney is an insider from the global bankers. I think they're making the shift. I think there's a divide between them. There's no doubt about it. But Carney is a North American guy first. He was born in arguably they say the Yukon, but he tries to paint himself as an Albertan. He was a Harper guy, as the head of Bank of Canada while Harper was here. He is very tight with those asset managers. And that's when I'm talking about that language about real estate. But I just want everyone to take a look, see what I'm seeing. Do you see what I'm seeing? If not, I understand. I could be full of crap. I may be looking at dragons and windmills, but I'm looking at the new geopolitical reality that's happening in front of us. And why would this be happening is because there has to be a new political alignment between our relationship with the United States, economically, security has to happen. Our currencies are not doing well. By merging these economies puts us into even a bigger superpower status. We've got China making moves globally. They're working, creating the BRICS nation to compete with the West, a competition with the West on who's going to be the new global reserve currency of the world. Is it going to be BRIC nations? Or is it going to be, with the EU potentially playing footsies on both sides? Or is it going to be led by the West, the free West, United States, Canada, Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, the historic Western British Empire nations? And that's kind of where I'm not saying I want to see a rise to the old British Empire, but that is what we're fighting for right now. So.
No, I don't think you're blowing smoke up anybody's butt. I think that the whole thing is there's a great rationale for it. Certainly Trump's talking that way. You cannot ignore the language of the president. 51st state, cherish, much love, beloved day. Come here, it's going to be better.
And when you think about exactly that, what's the way the Libs in Canada are going to be able to sell this? Well, we preserve jobs, we preserved our pensions, we preserved our sovereignty within this new union, no different than the EU. We could still print Canadian coins and money and all that stuff, but there will be an overriding larger currency like the euro dollar that's going to be the United States dollar that we can choose to operate either or. And if you want to do that, but there will be some things I think will be on the table. We'll no longer have any monopolies. It'll have to be open and free trade, both sides of the border. You'll be able to cross that border without going through customs checks. You'll be able to go back and forth just like the European Union, and the security perimeter will be on the outside. It will not be inside between each other.
What does Trump call it? Even he's not talking about income tax. He's talking about external tax. So everything's, it's us, and them. And he's been very, very opinionated, very strident in talking about this Golden Dome, the protecting of North America. He goes, it's not a question of if we're going to get Greenland, it's when we're going to take it. And he's not ruling out military for Greenland. He ruled it out for Canada, but he actually said, oh, we'll see. But they
already have a base there. They already have a base there. The fact is the Americans are in Greenland already.
Yeah.
And Denmark doesn't.
All right. What else would you like, Blake? We got another one here. This is okay. I've got mine there. Let's take a look at what because you brought in a number of good talking points. I got a few. Bruce Barrett came in with native parks. I covered that story as well. Oh, that's me that's one of mine. I want to talk about the native parks later. Western Lensman. You want to do Western Lensman or the Vigilant Fox?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's do Western Lensman.
Okay, Western Lensman is the account. We're going to take a look at him. Third in our hit parade. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're giving us a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. We're new. We're trying to get up and running. Okay, is this the one we want? No.
Yeah, Western Lensman.
Yeah, I'm just watching. I can see him behind what's happening. Things are popping in and out. As Sue tries to wrestle the Western Lensman.
there was a little bit of a blip there.
Okay.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, here it is.
So before pressing play on it, this is
I'll let you set it up.
Yeah, this essentially is what we've seen many times before, where we're seeing the hive mind collective response in the big dinosaur media working together with their propaganda machine, where the talking points are exactly the same through all the same editorial boards.
Yeah, the memo goes out at about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then it's distributed, and then it's echoed. All right. So we got a bunch of people here. Okay.
The tense confrontation.
I know what this is going to be. This is what's the word?
President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
Up next, another Oval Office meltdown. President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
President Trump is being accused of conducting something of a diplomatic ambush of South Africa's president in the Oval Office.
To be with you, I'm Katie Tur. President Trump orchestrated another Oval Office ambush today.
Today, Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader.
Zelensky territory, where essentially he was a bit ambushed inside the Oval Office.
Felt like an ambush in there, kind of like the President Zelensky meeting in the Oval Office.
This was an ambush. It was orchestrated.
Cyril Ramaphosa brought his best diplomatic self to this meeting, but nothing could have prepared him for this multimedia ambush.
What started as, to some degree, an ambush.
Well, Katie, I mean, it was an ambush.
Ambush.
Ambushed. Ambush.
An ambush.
Ambushing.
Ambushed inside the Oval Office.
All right. Yeah, that's nicely done. Whoever compiled that, the Western, I mean, he may be just broadcasting as well. I don't know who originally put it out. But yeah, it's the old Mockingbird media. It was Operation Mockingbird back in the 70s, where the Cold War, they were trying to keep an eye on media. CIA was putting their agents in there. And it's the message, it's the narrative. We've seen this over and over again throughout modern history. When the media gets on board something, Trump did some damaging work against the South African regime, very damaging, showing live film, all this sort of thing. Leftists got their panties in an uproar, and he's over the target when you get this kind of orchestrated response with the talking point going out. You got to use the word ambush. It's a liberal word of the week. So I think it was beautiful. I don't have much to add to it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Blake?
Yeah, and it was interesting. Somebody grokked it, saying who likely produces the information that goes out to all the media sources.
Good question.
And Grok, it was somebody in that list. If you were to follow that Lensman Twitter feed there, somebody put that in there, and it came back with Debbie Wasserman Schultz as part of the DNC's internal communications.
Even though
that pushed this narrative out to all the media.
Of course, Debbie Wasserman Schultz infamously had to forcibly resign for being the DNC chair because of the way they torpedoed Bernie Sanders. A lot of corruption there. She had to step back, but obviously stepping back, you can step back like Barack Obama, but you're just down the road on Pennsylvania Avenue, able to communicate to anybody you need to get something done. All right. And then we got this here. What do we got here? Let's take a look. Okay. And then this is still part of the South African nonsense that's going on. I think the president of South Africa owes President Trump an apology. This is from MJ Truth Ultra. Love it. Here is President Ramaphosa stating he will confiscate land from white farmers and redistribute it to, quote, our people, unquote, without compensation to correct a historic injustice. So this just absolutely...
This year, we will take decisive action to realize the enormous economic potential of agriculture. And as agriculture requires land, as agriculture needs land as a basic resource, we will accelerate our land distribution program not only to redress a grave historical injustice, but also to bring more producers into the agricultural sector and to make more land available to our people for cultivation. We will pursue a comprehensive approach that makes effective use of all mechanisms at our disposal, guided by the resolutions of the 54th National Conference of the governing party. This approach will include the expropriation of land without compensation.
Okay, that's the kill point right there. So they're going to expropriate the land, take land without compensation. We don't have to give you anything for it because you're a white colonizer is the language of the day. And therefore, based on that, we can just go in there and seize your property. It's ours now. What was yours is now ours. Sucks to be you, white farmer. Go ahead, Blake.
Well, I mean, this isn't new. We're hearing the same language here too now, in our own province, where the language is being spoken as which I think you're going to cover in a moment. But essentially, yeah, I mean, these people have been there for hundreds of years. It's not like they just showed up yesterday. You got generations of people who have cultivated those lands that were not cultivated before. And I believe some South African historians, though I can't verify its accuracy, said much of those lands were empty before they were actually producing anything. And it wasn't until they started producing things like mines and farming that people started to swarm in from the north and to get jobs. And that's where much of those populations outside of, I think, Botswana and Lesotho, who are two separate kingdoms that were given autonomy, which are there today. They're like two separate countries that are like island countries or kingdoms inside South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, God, there's the whole thing. There's this, the Anti-Defamation League, of course, they're, active in all this, but there's a meme that went around a long time ago, where it's basically the language goes to the fact that, like, we was Kangs, right? And the whole idea is like the African people, sub-Saharan Africans, laying claim to, the building of the pyramids and that sort of thing. And then, and one of the most striking says, no, you didn't build the pyramids. You built this. It's a grass hut. Now, since I'm, I just sent a missive off to my director asking about my Native American ancestry and heritage, culture, whatever, biology. My people, and I'm talking about my indigenous heritage, my ancestors, they weren't farmers. They were hunter-gatherers. And when you're a hunter-gatherer, you don't have time to make a temple, okay? You don't have time for a big building. You are living hand to mouth daily. And in fact, my second great-grandfather, who was one of the factors out at Fort Jasper, all these locations like Jasper National Park, Victoria, British Columbia used to be Fort Victoria. Edmonton, Alberta used to be Fort Edmonton. All these places were forts and outposts and trading posts as Canada is being built during the fur trade. And so we didn't have time. My ancestors didn't have time to build these glorious monuments like you see in Kantikitaka or whatever, where like you go down South America, Central America, and you see the Aztec civilizations, the Mayans, but they were agrarian. They were cultivating corn, famously the maize, doing the corn harvesting. And so that gave them time. Once you got food stored up in your temples and in your storage facilities, it gives you a little downtime to kind of ponder life, and you got a little spare time because you're not going to starve if you don't go out and hunt and gather something immediately. It's already reserved in the stores for you. And so these are the cultures that produce these lasting monuments. My people, a lot of build stuff out of, buckskin and deer hunting and the bison on the prairie. I'm a prairie Indian, prairie type one. And I'm actually a little woodland elf. It's called Woodlands Cree. If you look Cree Indian, I'm like a woodsland. Isn't that adorable? And so, this is why you don't see these great things. So in Africa, South Africa, no, they weren't an agrarian culture, right? So this is what the whites brought in. They settled, they farmed it. That's what they do. Same as the American West. It's the settlers into the American West that built the farm, the homestead. Then my cousins would come and take it away from you. You know, weight does go to give you trouble. Yeah, there's a lot of that. But you're so right. The serious point about all this, Blake, is that the idea that the land is no longer ours, that we're visitors, strangers in a strange land. The language that you were mentioning the other day about the NDP, David Eby, the premier, essentially the de facto governor of British Columbia, Canada, stating that, or I guess it was people under him, one of his think tanks.
One of his cabinet ministers, yeah. In his speech in the legislature said that we were to start describing ourselves officially as settlers, colonists, or uninvited.
Yeah. And of course, that leads to very practical things. So, Sue, can you bring up the notice on native parks? Is it all ready to go? All right, here we go. Let's see this again from the National Post. You know, Bruce Barrett writes, this is infuriating. He's not happy. White people are no longer allowed in public parks after all the taxes we pay to upkeep them. How do you feel about it? First reading, non-Indigenous visitors being turned away from British Columbia, where Blake and I live. BC public parks. Province of BC has authorized 2 parks to close to all but Indigenous users. That sounds a bit like apartheid. What, we can't drink at the colored fountain? Is this what you're telling us? What the hell?
Well, let's look who's behind all these areas, from South Africa to, you know, parts of the United States to parts of Canada and Australia and New Zealand, especially in the Western world, where this settler colonizer language, uninvited now is the new one. You know, who's been really pushing this, influencing at the local level, rallying up groups, working within the political establishment to change that vision? Well, look who's being influenced. It's by the Chinese Communist Party. Everywhere this is happening, they are there. So who are the rabble rousers trying to create this? Everywhere you see, it's communists. Communism. And people say, well, why would big corporate elites support this? Because they can, the big boys can make deals with them to have monopolies. The BlackRocks, the Vanguards, the State Streets, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to deal with the little folks, all of us, all of the people, mom, pops, and individuals that want to have a home and build a small business or whatever it might be a little miner, have a little logging patch, whatever it is, be a farmer. All that stuff is being infiltrated by foreign influence, and that is a big danger on all sides. When you listen to the guys, to the leadership in the African National Congress, now those guys are commies. These guys are not there supporting the people. They are being influenced. I remember South Africa fighting Cuba in Angola, right? So Cubans were there sending troops in there. So these communists have been fighting to destabilize those areas for a long time. And it's anywhere where there's wealth, they want to destroy it. They're against capitalism. But sadly, we now have a corporate class who's allowing this to happen because they get an advantage. And I think that's where that WEF crap comes in. You'll own nothing and be happy. And which, you know, we see this happening. Of course, Indigenous people are being used, right? You're just the patsies to push this legislation globally to take rights away from everybody. And we go back to, they first came for these people, then they came for you, et cetera, et cetera. So believe it, you're not being singled out and given special privilege. You're just being used to take the rights away from the majority.
Now, this next story, we really can't even talk about on YouTube. We can drop a link to it maybe and tell you about it. This is a Vigilant Fox that was all. Blake's got the Vigilant Fox there. Is that what I think about the little disease thing that happened?
Well, no, it's more about this new tax.
Oh, okay.
That Canada, CRA was going to do this in Canada without the bill passing. This is how crazy things are going, where the government bureaucracy can start changing taxes before the tax is even passed into law.
Okay, let's take a look what he says here. Okay, go ahead, Blake.
Yeah, so this was posted yesterday by the Vigilant Fox. BlackRock is quietly erasing home ownership, and it's all part of the Great Reset plan. Globalist governments are quietly engineering a future where you'll never own a home because they have decided you don't deserve to. It's called build to rent. You'll own nothing and be happy. It is spreading like wildfire. It started in Australia, where foreign-backed corporations are getting tax breaks, fast-track approvals, and access to prime land, while everyday Aussies are being priced out of the market. This isn't about solving the housing crisis. It's a land grab, and it's the Great Reset in action. You will own nothing and be happy isn't just a slogan anymore. It's a public policy. Smart cities, CBDCs, that's your central bank digital currencies, if you didn't know what that meant. AI surveillance, build to rent housing, all lead to the same end: total control and complete loss. And I will add, this is what EB's been doing in BC. This is the next step in their plan. They're not just taking your homes, they're taking your future. Watch this report. And of course, she kind of covers a special tax that Canada was embracing. Carney said, well, I don't know if he's going to do it now because Trump, I think, is putting pressure on him. But if you listen to what she says at the beginning of what this tax is, it is terrifying. It's going to tax the assets that you own, after tax purchase assets.
Yeah, let's play
before.
Let's
from the beginning. Take it from the beginning of that video.
Want to make it big here for
we don't have to hear the whole 9.
And this our last story tonight should alarm every single person. There is a widening agenda originating from the US and UK, reportedly, opening the doors for corporations like BlackRock to shut anyone out from ever owning a home again. It is very reminiscent of Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum telling us that the Great Reset would ensure you will own nothing and be happy. It's called Build to Rent, or BTR. In the US, BTR refers to housing developments constructed with the primary intention of renting out the properties rather than selling them to individual homeowners. These communities often resemble single-family neighborhoods or townhome complexes and are managed by developers or institutional investors like BlackRock. This is already happening across the United States, but a recent election in Australia has resulted in the fast-tracking of this across the nation. As we saw during COVID, Australia is often the testing ground for the most extreme, aggressive aspects of Agenda 2030, or the Great Reset.
So is Canada.
And this clip from Oz Integrity explains it well.
The government has promised to fix the housing crisis by building more homes. 1.2 million new dwellings over 5 years. Sounds great on paper. But here's the catch. The vast majority of these new homes are not for ownership. They're built by institutional investors, super funds, hedge funds, and overseas syndicates, to be part of Australia's booming build-to-rent sector. This means fewer houses available to buy, more long-term renters, and a system where your landlord is a multi-billion-dollar fund based in Singapore or Toronto. So while they say they're addressing housing supply, they're really building a permanent rent class, a generation of Australians who will never own, only pay.
So while it's being touted as a solution to rental shortages, which, by the way,
okay, and so she'll go on from there. So we understand the big picture is that you don't own your home, you're going to rent it, and somebody else is going to take the money away. This is, again, and it's exactly that, right? You'll own nothing, you'll be happy, none of the headaches, we'll take care of all that. Maybe, if it's Mr. Farley, your landlord.
Well, and I think what's the unholy alliance within this system is that you have public-private partnerships, meaning government and these huge, massive asset class managers. Let's face it, BlackRock, I think, has about $10 trillion in valuation of assets they manage, and expanding every day. And let's remember, when fractional reserve banking's in place, you only need, if you've got $1 trillion on deposit, you can convert that anywhere from 10 to 20 times that value in printed money to go buy more stuff. But the fact is that these guys have allied with government because they have allied with pension funds. Pension funds is the choke point because that's the part you control almost everybody, and they're taking national pension funds, union pension funds, and they're using that to fund this. So it is this terrible alliance where you have, as a small person, an individual in that, you have no say because these guys have the power to walk into your country and say, this is the way things are going to be because all of your people are invested in its future. Your whole nation.
Yeah, we. My personal story with this, Sue, and our personal story in this is that we were in Oak Bay, which is one of the ritziest areas in Victoria, British Columbia. Traditionally, so old money there, and we could not afford to stay where we were living. We had a home there in Oak Bay, across from Ratbury's private school. So, to give you an idea, right off Beach Drive, highly desired property. We owned it. But we had to surrender it because there's no way we could afford the tax on that. So what did we do? We moved out to Sydney, British Columbia, little retirement community, much more affordable. The land tax, which you're constantly you got property tax, even though you own your home, nobody owns the land. The government wants their tax. You get taxed for owning your home. So you don't really own anything anyway, the motherfuckers. And it got so bad that over time, that it kept going up and up in value. Okay, so the property tax where we lived, and it was like I felt like one of the little pigs. I got a beautiful house of straw. Well, the government comes, I'm going to huff and puff and blow your little straw house down. Well, now I'm going to make it out of wood. I'm going to huff and puff and blow you out of that one too. And they did. The top property, the tax rate went up where we lived. I said, we can't afford to stay here, Sue. Let's look at another option. We ended up going to Nanaimo, where we're in a double wide trailer now. So we move out of Oak Bay. They chase us out of there financially. We got to go. We're a retired couple. We go into Sydney, can't afford to stay there. Then we move over to where we are in Nanaimo. Next step, we're going to live in a little carton that the government's provided when the tax on this place goes through the roof. I mean, it's targeted. I'm a living example of the squeeze that way. So,
well, and I think everybody's facing it now. Everything from the financial institutions colluding with that because they are allowing insurance rates to quadruple. Look what's happening in California to drive people out of their homes because they won't be able to have insurance on it. So you won't be able to get a mortgage. That's happening here in BC. It's happening in Canada. It's happening around the Western world where the insurance companies are a tool to increase those rates. Property taxes add that up. And so the tax, if we watch that video further, the one that they're going to use to drive smaller, independent, mom pop type investors. Hey, I just want to buy that little extra home to have an income as for rental income, and it will be for my retirement future. But the tax that they're going after, that they're creating now, is a tax which basically taxes on your future unrealized income. So they're saying you own this asset, it is worth X dollars, which means every year you got to pay the tax on your realized income that you haven't realized yet. So they're going to go after your gains, unrealized gains, they call it, unrealized gains tax. They're taxing what the value of your property is. So if it goes up in value, but you still own it, you haven't sold it, they're going to tax you on your gain before you've even realized it. That's what they're doing in Australia. That's what CRA started to do just before the election, said they were going forward with the tax to do it anyways, even without a bill that passed the law yet. So this is the globalists, the WEF, the big black rocks, those monster, giant spider corporations that have their fingers in absolutely everything in the world, are doing to drive people out, part of the Great Reset. Remember, Klaus Schwab said, we're going into an angrier world. Why are we going to be angry? Exactly that. But I think Donald J. Trump is a leader standing up to them, and he's forcing the good guys to change direction, come back into the United States, and we're hoping maybe this is the change, the new political alignment. You're either with those guys in Europe and China, or you're with us, right? To build a free and prosperous world where everybody can participate.
Really, I love that, Blake. Very positive. Sue, can you bring up the big, beautiful bill stuff? There's 2 links in there. Let me take a look at what I put in. There's one. Let's see.
There's one there for you right now.
Okay, you got one. Let's take a look at what we got. There's a couple. The president himself was taking a notice. Hey, this is you and me. I love us. We're
hey guys. That's us in the past. We're time travelers.
Smokes, we're good. Holy smokes, that's a horrible link. Let's get rid of that, Sue. This one is x.com, real Donald Trump status. It reads that link. Yeah, we'll hear from the president himself what he says. But basically, the big, beautiful bill managed to pass yesterday. Well, there's a couple. We'll do this one first. Breaking, the House of Representatives erupts in cheers and applause. Trump's one big, beautiful bill officially passes. Congratulations, 47. Nick Sorta reporting here. No tax on tips or overtime. This is fantastic for people in the service industry. A lot of them get minimum wage. You can't live on it. And so the taxes go a long way. And to have that kind of extra income without having the government go for it is incredible. There's 175 billion for deportations and the wall. So we need to have that in order to secure the border. Tremendous. Ladies and gentlemen, tax relief for seniors is in that bill. And he's making his 2017 tax cuts that he initiated in his first term permanent. So these are huge wins for the current administration. The Dems, of course, for their part, are absolutely going nuts. They're going ballistic. And they are, at every turn, they're saying, oh, he's taking your security away. And that's just out and out lies. It's all bullshit. Pat's radio, many of these late stage globalist plans are inevitably going to affect people of all political stripes. Exactly. But it's a canary in the coal mine. We're the first, because we're kind of awake to it all. We know what's going on a little bit, How can they manage to follow it without an iron fist? I think what happens is that the idea has been the slow boil. Do you know the French Revolution? I heard this.
The truckers was an iron fist. The truckers saw an iron fist.
Yes, they sure the hell did. It was extremely draconian. But in the French Revolution, before the people finally did revolt, they were starving. It was down where nobody could afford any bread. The population, was a lot of exploitation of the populace, but it got to the point where they were actually starving, and they said, okay, I think we need a change. We got to change. Something's got to happen to change this around. Here's the president's own words, his own take on this. I think it behooves us to read them. The one big, beautiful bill has passed the House of Representatives. This is arguably the most significant piece of legislation that will ever be signed in the history of our country. The bill includes massive, big capital letters, massive tax cuts. No tax on tips. No tax on overtime. Can you imagine you're working overtime? You don't get taxed on it? What a joy. Holy shit, where do I sign up to become an American? I want this. The bill includes massive no tax tips, no overtime, tax deductions when you purchase an American-made vehicle. Buy American, right? Make America great, kids. Along with strong border security measures, pay rises for ICE and Border Patrol. They do a tough job. Give them that make the worker is worthy of his hire. Funding for the Golden Dome, the beautiful golden Trump savings accounts for newborn babies. I just love that. You got a new kid and you can get a little account started for the little tyke to help them get started up. And much more. Great job by Speaker Mike Johnson, House leadership. And thank you to every Republican who voted yes. It's time for our friends, the U.S. Senate, to get to work, send the bill to my desk as soon as possible. No time to waste. The Democrats have lost control of themselves, are aimlessly wandering around, showing no confidence grit or determination. They have forgotten their landslide loss in the presidential election. They're warped in the past, hoping someday to revive open borders for the world's criminals to be able to pour into our country, men to be able to play in women's sports, and transgender for everybody. That sounds great to me. They don't realize that these things, and so many more like them, will never again happen. That's absolutely powerful, world-shaking message by Donald John Trump. And boy, oh boy, it's the kind of language is just sure to ignite the Trump derangement syndrome and those familiar quarters, that percentage of the population that suffers from that particular illness. Yeah, just reading, Wolfie baby, I love you. Further proof, all we needed was a better president to get these changes done. Pat's Radio. Blake, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, demonizing the truckers is one thing, but handling the fallout from denying people financial independence will require something more draconian. They showed how they were going to do it during the trucker protests. They went after the people who financed it, were donating to it by locking their bank accounts. That shows that draconian measure. They'll just lock you out. They'll turn off access to your money.
Well, and there's arrests too. We know that Tamara Lich is in the world's longest mischief trial of all time. They're looking to throw her into jail for 10 years. Chris Barber, her co-partner in this, in the trucker co-leader of the convoy demonstration, the Freedom Convoy, incredible. He's currently in trial, like today. He's been in trial the last few days. So we wish them well. We hope for victory when they're, the government just with its overreach. And we even had our Supreme Court, for whatever that's worth, telling them that basically the emergency measures that you applied were unconstitutional and they should not have been applied. There was no basis in reality for it. Let's see what else we got here. Let's go. What's our time? 2:56, last minute. Let's go to the auto pen. Let's end up the auto pen for the day. We got some news breaking on the auto pen. This is huge. Trump talked about this, calling it, quote, high treason. He also tweeted out about tribunals, military tribunals, and, quote, public military tribunals to be held publicly to bring these people to account. So this is, we got some names. Let's see. Let's put our alleged in front of all this, but let's see what we got. Liz Churchill writes, President Trump states this was treason at the highest levels. It appears the auto pen was used by Ron Klain, Anita Dunn, and Bob Bauer. I have a high-ranking vital official come forward. Weaponization, quote, by director Ed Martin. So Ed Martin is out. He's the Republican that Trump wanted to become the district attorney for the District of Columbia, D.C.
Do you want me to play?
Yeah, I guess you can play it. Sure. Let's see what we got.
That knew he was cognitive. The president, if you were with us on the morning meeting, you saw talked at length, 2 stops before he went into the meeting with the House conference, talked to the media, and he talked a lot about this issue of the auto pen. All presidents use auto pen, but there seems to be a sense in the Trump administration that Joe Biden, and this is something Ed I think is working on, that Joe Biden used the auto, or people used the auto pen to sign things on Joe Biden's behalf, including pardons that may be not legally, constitutionally permissible if it wasn't actually the president and it was some robot or whatever you call the auto pen. So here's number 3. This is a Truth Social post from the president about this topic. And again, he talked about it at length this morning. Joe Biden was not for open borders. He never talked about open borders where criminals of all kinds, all right, blah, 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 go through the process. It was the people that knew he was cognitively impaired and that took over the auto pen. They stole the presidency of the United States and put us in great danger. This is treason at the highest level. So, Ed, where did this start, this notion that the auto pen was improperly used, and what evidence have you seen for the president's accusation?
Well, I'll make a little news for you, Mark, here. I was in the office as U.S. Attorney for about 5 days when I wrote to a number of senior Biden officials in the White House saying, what did you know about Joe Biden's competence and the pardons? And I got some responses. And so I've been looking at this for a while. Again, I think that the question is more about competence. If you have someone who's not competent, they can't enter into a contract, right? And if you do enter into a contract, you've committed fraud. The question is whether you use a tool to trick people into entering into a fraud. So the Biden pardons are unprecedented. The ones right before Christmas that he did, people forget this. I think it's a couple thousand pardons that were done. Did he know about that? Did he really understand? Look, the pardon power is plenary, but the guy has to be competent to do it. Now you come forward to this question broadly of the auto pen. Auto pen's completely obviously legal if you're competent, and there must be a trail that shows who was in charge of the auto pen. I know this exists. Like, I worked for a governor. We had a system for an auto pen to be able to use it. And so right now we have unprecedented conduct, the pardons, unprecedented admissions, the books, as well as the staffers. I had a whistleblower in my office 10 days ago, senior Democrat, saying, look, it was these 3 people that controlled access and they were making money off of it. I don't know if I believe it yet, but the point is, I think we have to get to the bottom of it for the American people and to protect the process, and that's what we're doing. And by the way, make it all the way to the bottom. It may not be criminal, but it certainly should be a scandal of the first order, maybe in human history, or maybe American history. I sound like the president there, but in American history, to have this kind of conduct.
Ed, I'm from Maryland, not North Carolina, so I'm not that bright.
Okay, so the idea here is that obviously, clearly, an investigation has to be done. And my understanding is the Department of Justice is looking into who controlled the auto pen, but we do have some names that were released, some basically Biden, aides, people intimate with the president, not sexually necessarily, but people that were in contact with President Biden. That had access to it, and so they could sign off. And I do know that somebody put a list of the pardons. It looked like Biden's popular vote. When everybody's in the 60,000s, Biden's getting 80,000. One of these things doesn't belong. And they were showing all of these pardons at him, how many Bush had given, how many Clinton, how many Obama had given, how many Trump gave, and Biden's were just like off the charts, how many people this guy had pardoned. The question now is, was Biden cognizant of these things? Who was running the pen? Because if it wasn't the president, if he wasn't in his right mind, and or if he didn't sign off on this, it's somebody misappropriating the use. It's essentially forging the president, allegedly, forging the president's autograph. So there's going to be a lot more to come on that. But listen, folks, Blake and I are in overtime here on the Daily Nooner. A lot going on in this big world of ours. As always, I want to thank Blake for bringing some heat to the show, and with a lot of great insight and a lot of knowledge, too. This guy it's not theoretical. He lives this. He works in many of the industries that are associated with the topics that we're discussing here. Folks, give us a like. The thumbs up means a lot on the program. Share the video. We're new. We want to get this out. We want to grow the audience. We want to thank those that are with us today, all 9 of you. We just don't get a lot of people watching while it happens. But afterwards, we end up getting 100 and some odd views per video. So it's all business. We like to get the views and make this thing go. Blake, thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow. I hope we get you tomorrow.
Sounds good. And just as we leave, I'm just going to recommend 2 songs for your VC community that follow you.
Okay, right.
That represent what we've been talking about today is Bastille Day by Rush.
Bastille Day.
And the second one, Winds of Change by the Scorpions.
Winds of Change. Scorpions, you metal people. You know what he means. Hard rock. All right.